Yeah, and speaking of
Huh.
the outbreak in the U.S., it's Tom Meyer's birthday today.
That is an outbreak.
That's a nice segue.
I think everybody should go to Tom Myers of 12 Volt Electronics Facebook page and wish him happy birthday right now, regardless of what day you're listening to this podcast.
Right. Just keep telling him happy birthday. In fact,
Yes.
if you already told him, tell him again.
Happy birthday, Tom.
On behalf of the Eschatology Podcast, happy birthday, Tom.
Yes.
Let me see.
Aaron's doing it right now.
I'm doing it right now. Let me mute myself.
Ben said.
So the last time, let's see here, what's happened over the past few months? As Ben contracted the coronavirus in his household.
Oh, so we're just going public with my personal health information. That's
right.
There we go. PII.
There we go. Yeah. Yep. I contracted the COVID-19.
Aaron had hair last time we had a podcast.
I did. COVID stuff drives me crazy.
Since then, he lost it all.
I did. I was getting there. I was like, might as well just shave it.
How is the whole coronavirus thing been?
Okay, let's spend 2 minutes on this because it's mandatory, right? So, contracted it via family member contact via kids, essentially. So, my 8-year-old brought it home to us. So she tested positive first, and then we kept getting tested every day because why not? Just, figure out when we actually get it. Wife tested positive a couple days later, and then I tested positive a couple days after that. And for the most part, the first day for my wife and I was pretty crappy. Had fever, felt like we had the flu, wanted to be in bed, real bad headaches. Lasted about 24 hours and then progressively got better pretty quickly. Kids really seemed unaffected entirely. I don't really have any symptoms. I have I don't know, I feel like I have a cold constantly, but it's also allergy time of year and maybe, I don't know. I don't know what to attribute to remaining symptoms and what just to call normal. My wife has a cough, persistent, like a deep chesty cough. I never did have a cough, period. So, and neither one of us, we both felt like we had feverish chills the first day, but we didn't have a thermometer that first. I ordered one on Amazon right when we knew that we got it, and it came late. And by the time we got testing ourselves, nobody ever had a fever. I don't know how that's a very good indicator when people say they're testing people for temperatures walking into a building. That, I don't know, to me, we had a fever. I tested myself finally. Our thermometer came the second day I had it, and I didn't have a fever at that point. But gotcha. I don't know. Felt like crap, feeling better now. I still am testing positive for, I believe, at least a month. After you get it, you'll keep testing positive. So I'm not going around people any more than I need to. I'm released from our health department to go out. I'm free, wear a mask. Yes. Everybody says you're not contagious after 10 days. 10 days from the first onslaught of your symptoms. So whenever my symptoms started, 10 days after that is when you're technically done and good to go. But I don't know. I don't feel right being out knowing that I still test positive until...
You're probably one of the safest people around now. So
I feel there's a sense of relief because now I've had it. Right. I know what, at least for us, we know what to expect if we were to get it again, right? We didn't die. I know that's a real situation for a lot of people, and I don't want to make light of how that affects anybody else, but for us, it was...
So you're not in a high-risk category to start with, so...
Well, my wife has asthma, so we were a little worried. And her family, her mom and dad, especially her dad, are high risk, so... I don't know. It was scary. The mental aspect of it was definitely one of the scariest pieces, just knowing that first day, right, exactly. So, but it's over.
Yeah,
hopefully that was 2 minutes or less.
It's scary when your kids get sick like that too, man, especially with this thing, because we just still don't know what's going on with it. So,
and our 2-year-old, she's 2 now. She never did test positive, but the test kits, it's like a swab, and it barely fits up her nostril. So I just assume that, she had it too. The health department just said, assume she had it too. But she never tested positive. I don't think they ever got a good sample from her. But anyway.
So in the meantime, while Ben's been messing around with actual things, Erin has been playing with speakers. So what got that going, Erin?
Boredom.
Because you've been talking about doing this for a while, right? Like a couple of years, I think.
Yeah. So I tested, like, I think I started in 2010. I started testing for DIY MA, and I had some issues with the owner at the time because I was testing stuff and things weren't looking good. And he had affiliations with some of these companies. Like, I think, well, I don't want to name, there's a couple of them. I don't want to name names. But anyway, so I wound up branching out on my own. And my daughter has some autoimmune deficiencies. And a couple of years ago, things got kind of scary. Well, I guess it's about 3 years ago. So I just hung up testing for a while. And then I don't know. Normally, I fill my boredom with car audio stuff, but when I got my new car last year and had Steve do all the install, I was like, okay, I'm not touching this, especially because I paid for it. Yeah, I was like, so January rolls around, and I'm like, dude, I'm bored. I was like, I need to get back to testing again. So yeah, I just started doing that again, and I enjoy it. Been hitting it hard the past month or two. We kind of need to take a break maybe for a little bit.
I was gonna say you've been having tests out like sometimes sequential days. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so I've got into testing loudspeakers, which for me is, I'm more interested in loudspeakers lately just because of how the dispersion patterns differ from speaker to speaker and how you can determine value versus performance for speakers. Like, I tested some $90 bookshelf speakers. They were incredible. And then I tested another set of $90 bookshelf speakers and they were terrible. So it's crazy, like the chasm between the two.
So what do you mean loudspeaker versus
like a drive
actual
unit.
enclosure, right?
Yeah, like a loudspeaker that has, like, like a 3-way loudspeaker or a 2-way, like a passive type speaker. Okay. So a traditional loudspeaker that you buy and bring home.
Not just a speaker driver,
got
the actual full cabinet and everything.
Right. But it takes me 10. It takes at least 10 hours to test a loudspeaker. Like, it's crazy.
I saw like, weren't you like sticking the speaker at the end of a string and swinging it around above the head?
I think that's what I was doing. It's hard to do with the heavy ones though, because then it takes the momentum with me and just carries me off.
Get some of those.
Explain what is it you're trying to do with that?
Hold up, you're serious?
No.
Okay.
But well, do explain.
I do some weird stuff, but I don't remember doing that. I tie like a frozen bee to a string and watch it spin around.
The heavier the speaker, the better it sounds.
Yeah,
well, I know it's pretty
exactly right.
You have some pretty fancy test equipment, so maybe talk about it real quick.
Yeah, so I contacted Klippel. Klippel is pretty much the name in speaker testing, from loudspeaker, actual enclosure type speaker like we just discussed, to raw transducer drive units. So contacted them and they gave me a quote, and it hurt really bad. So I asked for donations. I think I raised like $2,000 or $2,500, which was put a big dent in those costs. But those costs are still, I'm gonna be paying for those for a while, for quite a while. But anyway, yeah, I just started getting into testing that. Like I said, I enjoy testing loudspeakers. I think more because of how it's a complete package. Like when I test drive units, you can't really subjectively compare a drive unit on a huge baffle, because it's just, it kind of is what it is. And you can't compare it to, I'm going to cross it over at this point because somebody else may cross it over at this point.
I was going to say the intended purpose and outcome is going to be different depending on who it is and what they're doing with it and everything else. So it's hard to say this is good and this is bad.
Yeah.
Versus a loudspeaker or somebody's presentation of it. It's like saying, well, here's this cauliflower on its own. I'm going to compare that cauliflower to that cauliflower, but it's not presented as a package on a plate to you. So with the loudspeaker, you're kind of,
it's a finished product,
right? So you can critique what that person was intending to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched your recent one of the mica that you just referenced, mica.
Yeah.
It was like everybody else. I'd heard and seen all of the incredible raving reviews and YouTube reviews and all that, and it was really interesting to hear your take on that.
Well, that's the thing that frustrates me. I mean, that's actually why I got into doing the YouTube stuff, is because I watch these guys and they're like, oh, this speaker's so airy. It's just this warm and it just pulls you in. And I'm like, oh my God. You guys are so lame. Like, and nobody gives a bad review because they're all being sent this stuff for free.
Right.
Yeah.
They're scared to tick anybody off.
Yeah. I'm just like, whatever. I'll order it from Amazon myself and I'll give it a crap review if it's crap. And if it's good, I'll give it a good review. And I've actually found that a couple manufacturers have contacted me and told me, hey, we don't think our stuff is going to measure that great, but we still would like to send it to you because we appreciate your honesty. So it's worked out for me in some regards, but I'm sure there are other manufacturers that if I ever reached out to them, they would see stuff and they'd be like, nah, I don't want nothing to do with you.
Right.
I bought a pair of speakers earlier this year based entirely on all of the reviews.
Hype.
Yeah, hype reviews. You know, both like the published magazine style reviews and internet YouTube reviews, and I wanted to see for myself what they were all about. Very similar to like what you're doing here, and I was extremely underwhelmed and ended up selling them rather quickly.
I was actually aggravated at how bad the Mika or the mic, I don't know how you pronounce it, but whatever. Because everybody had said, "Oh, these are great," you know, and then I listened to them and I'm like, well, "Are you guys deaf?"
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there literally was like a difference of 5 dB from the mid range to the highs, and I'm like, just forget it. Like, I wish more people would understand how influential these guys are trying to be, and they're just throwing up Amazon links. Like, hey, if I get this a good review, it's $90. Somebody will just buy it on a whim, and then I'll get 2 to 6% of that, and that's just messed up, man. I don't appreciate that at all.
People's reference has become Bluetooth speakers that you buy at Walmart, and I mean that's so. Yeah, I guess you go from that to maybe some crappy sounding bookshelves, and they're still pretty good sounding. I don't know, maybe not.
So
I think that's true.
Other than individual outcomes, has there been anything since you've gone into using the Clipple and kind of going more in depth than what you have in the past? Has there been anything surprising overall that you've learned in the process?
Like as far as just engineering wise, or just whatever?
In terms of even just outcomes versus what you're expecting going in and what came out. Well,
so one thing I do when I test loudspeakers, because I'll get back to the drive units, when I test those, it's just purely objective. And I try to measure all of them the same way. So that way you can always compare apples to apples, but I don't really give any subjective comments at all, just because there's no point, right? But for loudspeakers, I always listen to them first, and then I measure, because I want to try to correlate the two, but I don't want to get influenced by what I see, because I've had that happen to me countless times, where I'll see a measurement and even unintentionally I'll catch it, and I'll go in knowing that that's there, and I'll be listening for that and forget to listen for the other aspects as well. But the one really, I guess, fun thing is having the opportunity to test a wide array. So right now I've got a pair of Sela, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, audio from Rick Craig. It's a guy out in North Carolina, and he sent me a bookshelf speaker that he designed, and it uses, I don't know if it's a ribbon or an AMT type tweeter, because I haven't really looked into it yet, but it uses that and a Purify 6.5-inch midwoofer. And dude, I cranked those things up the first day I got them, and I was like, holy crap. There's a level of detail in the mid-range that I've never heard before. So then I was like, all right, well, let's see what these Purify speakers are doing. And then I tested those, and it's just, they're next level stuff, man. I mean, it's like 2020 speakers compared to 2010 speakers, Nice. But they're expensive. I think they're $370 a pop.
So where are you doing all this? Where do people find you?
ErinsAudiocorner.com is my website.
Erin spelled like a girl.
Spelled like a girl. No, it's spelled right. Everybody else is spelling theirs wrong. I'm going to come back to that. And my YouTube channel is Erin's Audio Corner as well. I was in, was it Publix or Lowe's? I was somewhere the other day, and there was a kid at the desk, at the counter, checking people out. He's a total jerk. But his name was Erin, and it was spelled Arin. And if he had like a sense of humor, or like at least a personality, I probably would have joked with him about it. But he was just not happy to be there. He looked like he'd just rather be at home, listen to Slipknot in a dark corner and crying to himself.
Arin.
Yeah. Arin. Arin.
You done messed up Arin.
Arin. Right.
Careful, we have some Arins listening.
We do.
They'll get over it.
They'll have to.
So Erin's Audio Corner.
Yeah.
On Facebook and YouTube.
Facebook, YouTube. Website.
So are you at the point where you're like in YouTube comment fame yet, where people like tear you apart, or is it everybody pretty supportive?
No, I get a lot of thumbs down when I have bad things to say. I've noticed that. Yeah, and I'm just like, people are upset because I'm trashing the speaker that they spent money on, but it's not my fault, I mean, I didn't make it. They should be mad at the companies who make this crap and then get these YouTube influencer people to shill the product for them. So I'm just doing my part to shine a light on that crap.
Do you have any deals on shipping large speakers? Like,
do I?
Do you have accounts set? Yeah, or are people just paying?
No, so far people are just paying to send them to me, and or donation money goes to paying.
Gotcha.
Towards shipping, stuff like that. So
yeah, I'd be curious to have a pair of speakers I have tested, but I know they're going to be insane to ship. So not going there right now.
I've talked with Ravel, and I'm supposed to be getting at some point when all this COVID stuff kind of goes back to normal, I guess. They're F328 BEs, which are something like 100 pounds a pop. I mean, there's just huge freaking speakers. They're like three 8-inch woofers, a 5-inch mid range, and a beryllium dome tweeter, and a little waveguide. They're huge. I'm looking forward to testing those, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to cover the cost of shipping them to me because they're coming from California. So.
Right. That's Ravel's owned by Harman, right?
Yeah, it's their luxury brand. It's funny too because I was talking with Floyd Toole on AVS Forum. I was sending him some of my reviews and kind of asking him for his critiques. And he was really responsive and helpful there. And I just messaged him and I said, "Do you happen to have an inside track?" So he hooked me up with somebody at Harman, and they're going to take care of it for me. So I'm
Nice.
looking forward to it. It should be good. And then I've got another company out of the Netherlands that's supposed to send me something as well. I think they retail for like 13K for the pair. So it's crazy stuff. I get scared though when that's the kind of stuff comes to my house. I tell my daughter, I'm like, you can't go upstairs until I put it away. Like, just don't walk upstairs because if that happens, dude, that's my car. You know?
Yeah.
So there's a Barbie head sticking out of your speaker.
Yeah.
I just want to let you know.
Like I'm just leaving the country. Y'all you come and get the parts if you want it.
Right.
We have a 2-year-old, and I bought a nice pair of speakers, and I cringe. But it's interesting because she walks up to them and she stares at them, and she gets close, like she knows that's where the sound's coming from. I mean, I did put the grills on.
Well, it's either that or she's jealous because she knows that you care more about those than her.
No, that's not true.
I know it's not true.
That's not true.
But-
Most days.
But if she was falling and one of the speakers was falling, I could tell you.
He would die for the speakers. He would prop them up.
So what's your? I mean, I know you've been doing this for a long, like a decade now, in terms of doing the speaker in-depth reviews and that, and like you said, it takes 10 hours for
10 hours for a loudspeaker, 3 hours or more for a drive unit. Yeah.
So like, what's your? Where do you get your kicks on this? What's your goal? What's your?
Just the data. I'm a data junkie.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, really, just putting that data out there, being able to compare and contrast. It used to be useful for me because I would have the ability to test speakers and I think, okay, this one's going to go in the car, but I'm not doing that anymore. So
Right.
But now it's just more for fun, and it's fun. Like when these people, the manufacturers will send me, the loudspeakers to test out, or I'll get some, borrow from somebody. The Bose 901s, a guy from I think Connecticut sent me some, and I'd never gotten to hear them before, so that was an experience. Getting to hear what those things are about. It was a trip, total trip. They sound like accuracy wise are garbage, but I don't. Have you guys ever heard the 901s?
Yeah.
Not set up properly. I've heard them in restaurants. Just random,
Right.
but I've never had an actual experience where it's the main event. No.
It's probably not too much different than just being
I was
set up
gonna
against
say,
a wall.
It's about their main goal, I think. Is just to fill the room.
Ambience. Yeah.
They're crazy, man. They're fun to listen to. I mean, if I had endless money and an extra room, I'd have a room with just those in them, just to go into and kind of chill out and listen to. But for accuracy, no.
How do you make that balance between listenability and accuracy, or is it the same thing or not?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because so you guys know, being judges and all that stuff, you have an idea of what's accurate based on your training, based on the years of experience that you have. But then there's also some things, like the 901s, for example, where they throw such a vast soundstage, even though it's not necessarily well focused or entirely coherent. It's just so different that it's fun and enjoyable. But as far as trying to listen to it and pick apart things, it's hard to do that. The tonality curve is all over the place. There's a lot of distortion. So in regards to the accuracy, that's where it falls apart. But just wow, this is a different experience perspective, the soundstage that it throws is otherworldly.
About the correlation there, I was curious what happens when the data doesn't match up with what you hear. Since you're a data
so
person.
far, I haven't run into that.
Okay.
Yeah. They came out with a way, Floyd Toole and some others came up with a way, it was called the CEA 2034 spec. And now it's like CTA, I can't remember what, Consumer Technology Association maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, CTA 2034 spec. And what you do is you measure the speaker 360 degrees horizontally and then vertically at 10-degree increments at least. Then you take all that data, you compound it, you put it all together, and you get what they call a prediction target curve. And that's supposed to be what you should hear in a typical room, typical like sized room with, furnishings and things like that. So far, I've only had, I think, 2 speakers that measured in room differently than the predicted curve. And that one of them was the Bose. because it's such a
fire
weird
speaker.
case.
Yeah.
And then the other one recently was the Philharmonic BMR speaker, which uses the ribbon tweeter. I can't Rao Webben. Gosh, it's so hard to say. The Rao and the horizontal dispersion is like almost plus or not minus 90 degrees. I mean, it's crazy wide. And I don't think that calculation to determine the curve is built for a speaker that has that kind of dispersion. So it actually showed that it would be a little bit hotter. Actually, it showed about 3 dB hotter than what it sounded like to me in room. And it sounded like about a dB or two hot, but that was just the curve of the speaker itself. But so far,
So the data's been very useful.
Yeah, it has been. It's been really useful. So especially like when you get into below 3, 4, 500 hertz in a room or even in a car, it's hard to determine what's a resonant mode and what's not, what's coming from the speaker and what's not, because the room influences so much. And I heard a couple of instances where I've heard resonance from like a boxy sound from the enclosure, but I'm thinking it could just be the room. Well, you go and look at the data and it's hard to find it, but it's buried in there. And around 250 to 300, there'll be like a 1 dB peak, and it's just enough to kind of make itself presentable there. Huh. It's pretty interesting. It's been a real good experience for me because I sit down, I take notes, and then I compare the notes to what the measurements are, and I try to find where they correlate. And when they don't correlate, I'll go back and listen, and I'll say, oh, okay, so those cases are more of a learning experience for me too.
How much do you think your experience in car audio has translated over to doing this and vice versa?
It's been a huge help, just with the number of years of not necessarily judging, because I judge kind of randomly, just as is needed basis. But from the years of tuning my own car, listening, helping others, getting the experience across multiple platforms. It's not just my own car year after year or day after day. It's having the experience of all these different environments, all these different these rooms, so to speak, and being able to understand, when you listen and then when you measure, correlate the two, and it helps you understand where the correlations occur. For example, like when we judge, we say, the mid-range sounds a little bit something at 500 or 600 hertz. And if you're a good judge, you're right on. If you're not, you can kind of give a ballpark, but you may not be as close. Through the years, I've honed that skill a little bit more. And when I listen to these speakers upstairs, I'm actually able to get really, really close to the specific issue. If I say it sounds a little bit forward, it's usually in the 1 to 2K hertz region. Sure enough, I'll go and look. It's a little bit hot in that area. If it's a little bit hollow, then usually that's in the mid-range area, or the treble sounds a little bit brighter. Those attributes to a speaker become a lot easier to identify thanks to all this car audio experience that I've had. And things like timing, things like phase that I think a lot of home audio people don't understand that well and aren't really keyed into, because we have active systems. That's what we tune daily, Right. So we're messing with the time alignment. We can understand what it sounds like when something's almost perfectly in phase versus when it's 45 degrees out. We can hear those little details.
It's crazy to me how few in the home audio segment actually use DSP the way we do.
I know it.
Like it's like this foreign thing. Like I don't know. There's some big stereo.
It's even still, I think, kind of taboo. I mean,
yeah.
People.
Well,
it's like, well, you're messing with what the
the
manufacturer intended. Yeah. There's so much art that went into those speakers that you're messing with the art form by putting a DSP in front of it.
Yeah, but I actually had one guy comment when I posted a review. I try to do direct live measurements as well to kind of listen to it after that and kind of give my subjective interpretation based on the room correction. I don't try to correct the speaker itself, but I try to correct like 300 hertz and down to fix the big peaks and dips in the response from the room. And I've had a few people reply to me and say, I appreciate that you provide both, uncorrected and corrected, because I don't like correcting my response in the room. And I'm like, dude, why would you not want to? Yeah. Especially in that range, where it's the speaker's not really doing much but just creating sound. The room is responsible for messing it up.
I have like an older home audio or home theater receiver with one of the early versions of Odyssey, and even that just does magic.
Yeah.
So do you think from a competitor standpoint, I mean, you kind of put into clear terms what a competitor could be doing following up being judged at an event, because, you kind of put a process there where, okay, I'm told this is what they're hearing, and then I'm backing that up with objective data via measurements, right. And then being able to confirm or hone that feedback into something useful, whether it's just knowing that it's there or if it's going into corrective measures from that point.
Yeah,
Or even sit there with your own DSP and put it, purposeful peaks and dips at certain places and see what that does. Play.
Yeah.
And you can train your ear that way too.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and throw this out there too. Harman has that How to Listen, which I think has been out for like probably 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a training thing. And I took that a long time ago. But Sean Olive on his Facebook had shared a link. I guess somebody shared also, and he found that. It's soundgym.com. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it is a daily training. It is free, or you can pay for it and do I guess it's unlimited training. But I've missed days here and there. It's really useful. For example, one session that they'll have is identifying EQ changes, and they'll play you one portion of a song that has maybe a 6 dB bump at 300 hertz, and then they'll play you the uncorrected song or the unequalized song version, and then you go and identify where in frequency was that change made. And they give you, I think, plus or minus an octave tolerance there. So if you said 400 hertz, even though it was 300 hertz, they grade you as a thumbs up. But you basically just go in and you train yourself. They have compression levels. They have all sorts of other things. It's for sound engineers, I think, mostly, but people like us definitely would benefit from that. So again, it's soundgym.com. Go check it out. It's free daily. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really good. It's been helpful for me.
I think I saw you link it a couple times, but I haven't really checked it out. But
that's all right.
Yeah.
Nobody pays attention to anything I say. So, what kind of excursion does that woofer have? That's it? Oh, man. I'll type all this crap up, and all I had to do was just say 3.4 millimeters.
That's it. Well, it's either good or bad, right? Well, I mean, you press on the cone to find out if the speaker is good or not.
That's you wait for it to play. You take it to Best Buy, you hook it up to one of their amplifiers, you wait for it to start playing, and then you touch the cone, and you break the cone, and if the cone breaks, then it's bad.
Right. Yeah, because if it's tough enough to take your one finger death punch, then it's obviously it's like sunglasses that scratch or don't scratch. The good ones don't scratch. That's what I've heard.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Have you been into a Best Buy in the last few years?
I've been into one. I went to see. I don't remember. I've been into one in the past 5 or 6 months. I think.
You
just
need a
because
dryer.
It was next to Chipotle. Well, I think it was next to Chipotle, and I was waiting for my food to get done.
Yeah, I, at least the last several that I've been into, the even the home theater section, it's all sound bars, and then they do have some tower and bookshelf speakers in a row on a shelf, not hooked up to anything that you can look at, and they're on a back shelf. Not prominently displayed or anything, unless it's a Magnolia store. So we do have a Magnolia store in a city around here, and I've been to that, and that's a different story. But
is that pretty cool? I've never been to the Magnolia version. I know that they carry Macintosh and B&W.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the brand they carry?
B&W, Martin Logan's. They do have ELACs, and I spent some time. I made one of the kids demo. Actually, before I bought the speakers, I ended up buying. I really did want to hear some nice speakers, so it was one of the trips I made was to go listen to some speakers they had set up there, which were not set up well, but at least they were set up to where you could play a little bit. So I listened to 5 or 6 different pairs of the higher end speakers that they had, and had some fun. Didn't buy anything, bought what I was going to buy originally anyway.
Did you hear anything you liked?
The presentation of the Martin Logans was really cool. They were lacking that top end sparkle that you may hear people talk about, but the overall presentation of the live sound, I heard some planar speakers like that. Oh, I can't remember. But they're smaller and sit on the floor. And I can't remember the name. But another local high-end shop that I went to go listen to some speakers, they had those set up, and it was a very similar presentation of just that type of sound that they presented. It was really cool.
So that brings up, I think, somewhat valid point. I mean, how, Erin, with your testing, how sure are you of what you're doing will translate to what somebody else will experience?
So going back to that predicted curve, that actually makes me a lot more confident than I would be if I weren't aware of that science.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the majority of unless it's a rare case, again, like the Bose, or it's something I don't know, like an odd duck.
Right.
What I measure should translate pretty well into what they hear, but it's all kind of room dependent. I mean, treatment in one person's room with this or no treatment. Some speakers respond better to a room that's treated than others do. But yeah, I have a high level of confidence. So.
But for the most part, at least if this speaker is objectively and somewhat subjectively better than that one, then regardless, that should translate.
Yeah, I think so. I don't really see many cases where you would run into a speaker that measures bad and isn't going to sound good, right. At least to the majority of people. And I've run into people where they've said, well, just because it measures bad doesn't mean it sounds bad. And I'm like, well, in my experience, that's pretty much always the case. So I've been doing, I haven't been like a home audiophile for years and years, but I've been doing this stuff for a while, and that's pretty much always been my case. Not to say that measurements trump listening, it never does. And I definitely encourage people to, when I provide review and measurements and all of that data and my own thoughts, if it's something that piques your interest, I say go ahead and get it anyway and listen to it in your home, because there are things beyond just how it sounds. Honestly, I say this all the time. Macintosh, I don't care if it sounds worse than another $200 amplifier. There's something about that name and the pride of ownership. If I could afford it, I would buy a Macintosh amplifier. And I don't care if it sounds any worse or better than, something half its price. It's just, to me, it's that name, and a lot of people in home audio, they want that too. Harbeth, I've seen Harbeth measurements in various outlets and they look scary, but people like Harbeth speakers and they'll continue to buy those.
Or like Grado headphones that show up on a weird curve no matter how you cut it, but so many people are still like, oh, I have the Grados.
yeah Some stuff is just legendary in name.
What about the measurements separates? I kind of mentioned the presentation of sound. I don't know how many people can explain what they hear, a difference between a direct driver, a traditional driver type speaker, and then like a horn speaker or a ribbon style speaker. They all have a little bit different presentation of sound. So how does that show up in measurements?
Well, I know one way it shows up for sure is the off-axis performance. So like a horn speaker, something like that is intended to be more directional, to give you less sound to the side. It's taking that energy and it's focusing it more forward. And as you go off axis, it's falling off a little bit quicker. But it holds its response better off axis too. So meaning that it follows the on axis response better in most cases, generally speaking, than a traditional like cone or dome type tweeter or mid-range, something like that. I'll go back to the RAL that I gave an example of earlier. That response is about 180 degrees. So frontward firing is 180 degrees, plus or minus 90 degrees, almost all the way up until like 16K, I think. I'm trying to recall from memory. As compared to a wave-guided tweeter that I tested, it was a Bucart S400. I think it was about plus or minus 40 degrees. And you can kind of tell those things as far as the room interaction, and it also lays out well in how you hear the soundstage. So, the more room interaction you get, for example, width isn't just the side of your speakers. Width is the reflection points as well. That's why in car audio, some people have tried, and I don't know how many have done it successfully, but played around with actually putting a speaker. I don't know how many of you guys know about this. Taking a speaker, putting it on your dash, aiming it toward the side window, and trying to basically fire it off the side glass to give you that width. You can't do that completely because at some point the speaker is omnidirectional. So you don't have to get like a huge speaker to actually make it completely directional. But the idea is that you get width that way. And the same principle in a home. If you've got something bouncing off the side wall, it sounds like it's coming from the side wall. But if it's a more focused speaker, it's more directive and more narrow response, then it's going to sound like it's coming more from that speaker than it is somewhere else in the room. I don't know if that helps, but.
No, I think all those things definitely contribute to overall perception of what you hear.
Yeah. Now in car audio, I don't think there's a really good way of pulling that information out. So in home audio, you have the luxury of taking the speaker outside, measuring it where there's no reflections, and then you can kind of see, oh, this is why I'm hearing this. You can get a really good idea. But in car audio, you can't take your speaker outside. You can take your kick panel outside. Yeah, it's just, there's only so much you can do, everything in the car is a baffle, basically.
I was going to say that the interior of the car is part of the enclosure.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
It's part of the loudspeaker. It makes it difficult. And
so then all you got is just the raw driver. And that's why I try to provide the frequency response for raw drivers. So you can, at least understand that I've consistently got this thing in my car, no matter where I put the speaker. It's probably the actual raw driver,
Right.
as opposed to it's the car.
So, event news this year, we've had two events essentially. We had the one at Audio Specialists in February before everything blew up, and then we had the one in Georgia, which is really kind of the only major event we've had this year, and that went well. We were going in capped at 40. We had around 47 signed up and registered originally. We ended up, I think, with 29 competing and around 10 judges. So it was
That's still
decent,
pretty good.
yeah, decent size, no problems. Everything went well. Everybody had a good time. I mean, that event is kind of set up well anyway, because we're only judging 8 to 10 vehicles at a time all at once. So, and all indoors in a, kind of set up environment to start with. So I think we're going to kind of carry that forward just because we know it works. Obviously, Steel Valley is delayed till 2021 now because the venue basically shut down for the year. So we have no control over that. Aggieland, we moved into October, which will now also host the sound quality finals for Mecca, Iasca, and Emma. And that's going to be in Dallas. Right now, as of the last 2 or 3 days, we've got that pretty much confirmed to be, it's basically where the Dallas Cowboys training facility is. So it's going to be set up essentially in that closed parking lot there, with large, like 20 by 60, 30 by 60 tents. So we're kind of making it as COVID proof as possible to where it's outside, but not completely open. But being mid-October in Dallas, we should have pretty ideal weather for the most part. And there's tons of, like, the hotels right there. We're planning on having a actual, like, banquet on Saturday night for an awards dinner, old school style. So most of the judging the plan is to get most of the judging done for the organizations on Friday and Saturday, and then do kind of like a Perry style invitational money round on Sunday with the top 20 cars, which will be kind of a separate event. And then that will be the $5,000 money round. So for the most part, the people who are just wanting to come in and just compete and then go, they should be pretty much free to go Saturday night. And then if they're wanting to go into the money round, they can be there Sunday to do that. Obviously, it's all very preliminary still as we kind of work things in, but it could be one of the best finals we've seen for a long time, just because of what's kind of coming together. There's a couple stores, retailers who are planning to come in to kind of do tent sales and stuff during the thing. They'll be, again, this is kind of spread out, so there's enough room to kind of have our 8 to 10 cars being judged simultaneously in one area, and then kind of have everything else kind of separated off. And then we're going to have kind of like sanitation stations set up at each judging station. So it'll be kind of old school lanes for the most part. But the plan is to do it kind of like what we do in Georgia, where essentially come in, you get judged for however long, 4 or 5 hours, and then you're done. So that way, if you're scheduled to be judged Saturday morning, for example, you're there from X time to Y time, and then that's it. You're free to go. So either you can hang out or go or whatever, but everybody's kind of limiting then even somewhat close contact. We're kind of able to limit for a competitor coming in. They may only see at that point, they can kind of limit things to where they only are in contact with the judges and maybe 8 to 10 other people, and that's it. And then, you kind of take your risks from there however you want, like anything. But it should be good. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more details coming on that. This weekend on the 22nd, we have an event this Saturday in Chicago at 12 Volt Electronics in Crystal Lake, Illinois. And you can go to Eschaeology Facebook for more information on that. And then the weekend after that, on August 29, is in Alabama at Audio X. And Erin will be one of the judges there.
He looks shocked. Surprise.
I'm just feeling bad for everybody whose car I judge.
So you can forward all complaints. Now that you know exactly how he does things, you can just come in and say, hook your car up to the clipple and call it. That's how it works, right? You just hook your car up to the clipple and
I'll just say, just drive through with some pink noise playing, and I'll just give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It either plays it or it doesn't.
So yeah, I think we're going to. Obviously, this year has been somewhat frustrating for everybody as we kind of figure out what's possible and what's not, and what we can do within reason. But I think this will be good. I mean, obviously, for me, for example, I mean, Dallas is a lot further away than Louisville, but I think it's kind of an ideal location. We searched high and low everywhere, including other options in Dallas, and just having it mobile toys like what we did in the past. And we still have that fallback. I mean, that's the good part here, is that even if between now and then everything changes, I mean, still go back to having it at mobile toys or something. I mean, we have backups. And so no matter what, I think we're going forward to at least have the finals event and kind of have a bash for the year of some sort in a very low key sound quality way.
Can you talk about points or anything? Like how do people qualify to be able to go this year?
So Mecca is you'll have to kind of Steve did a write up on kind of how they're doing things, and I think it'll kind of depend on what events are able to happen and who is able to get to those events and why for the remainder of the year. Obviously, we're still mid-August, so we're a couple months away from finals. But I know Mecca is still having kind of a baseline of points, and I think for the most part, most of the people that would be attending finals have attended enough shows to where they'll be okay within that. And I think if they're missing points, then they can basically buy those through Mecca to make up the difference to qualify for finals. Emma, we're pretty much just have a current membership, which we're going to run all the memberships through 2021. And then we're going to do a kind of a simplified membership for this year, since there's a new CD coming out next year, to where it's kind of just to make it to where we can work things through, and then we can kind of piecemeal that as everything becomes available, since everything kind of got delayed this year. But with Emma, it's going to be just pretty much have a membership and then go through the process with us to make sure that you understand what the judging process looks like and are prepared for that as much as possible, as well as whatever classification.
So anybody can buy a membership between now and finals to...
Right. So we're going to... the way it'll probably happen for now is through SQology, you can kind of register for Emma, and then whatever, like if you want tent or stuff like that, we're kind of still working out all the details as far as what the costs are on that at the event, because essentially one of the limitations we have on the premises is like the tents have to be set up by them in order to have a uniform appearance. It's not much in terms of cost, and they set it up and tear it down and everything.
It's individuals tents?
Well, yeah. So basically we're going to have like a 30 by 60 for the judging area. So it's a pretty ginormous tent. And then probably a couple of those for other sponsors and stuff. And then be able to rent like a 20 by 20 for the weekend for the competitors if you want a tent over your car.
What about power? Is that a...
Shouldn't have to have power since we're all pretty much outdoors. Then we'll probably have power set up in the judging area during judging. It's where that's pretty much just available. So I don't think there'll be any cost for power in this scenario. So the tent would be really the only other cost. But yeah, essentially once we open up the registration for finals, then you'll be able to register for the Emma membership, and if you want to compete in Emma, obviously, and then IASCA and Mecca will probably be separate through them directly on how they want to set that up. And then obviously anybody who is already registered for either Aggieland or SVR will just transfer that over into the finals registration. There's a lot of details to work through. I mean, we pretty much just kind of got to the point of, yes, we can do this at this facility on Friday. So, we're talking like, we're basically one working day into having that figured out. And there's still all the county permits to pull and everything else, and having a full written COVID plan for them and everything else. And that's being worked on. So there's a lot more to it this year in terms of pulling off the finals than there normally would be. But I think there's a lot of potential here, especially being in Dallas, being accessible to the West Coast and the East Coast. It's more kind of a much more central location overall, to where it's not completely biased in one area. So yeah, I think it's gonna be cool. From there, we're probably still going to have, for the people who register in all three, in Mecca, Iasca, and Emma, we're going to have a separate SQologist kind of money round on that, in addition to the invitational money round. And I think pretty much the way we're going to roll it right now is, if you're there for finals for, the organizations, then we're going to kind of pull from that to pull in the invitational in the top 20. You'll basically opt into that. And at that point, you'll register, once you're kind of invited, at that point, you'll be able to say, okay, yes, I want to compete for the money round. But it should be a pretty cool event. There's Perry style, or, the money round style events, and then there's finals. And those are two large scale events. And we're kind of trying to push that all into one thing in one weekend. So there's a lot to tackle. But I don't think we'll be seeing 80 or 90 cars like we have, over the past few years at finals, just because it's impractical for quite a few people to make it. So, but I think there's a lot of potential here for everybody. On the qualifications, I think as far as Iasca goes, I don't think it's going to be as much of a hard points qualification, but making sure that they're an established competitor, with it being in a newish location for finals, there's potential for a lot of people to come just based on proximity to the event that may or may not have competed before. It's still finals. So kind of trying to avoid it being, oh, I'm a first-time competitor. Obviously that takes time for everybody to kind of go through that experience. Right. I don't see a lot of that happening, just because, with the cost of finals and everything, there's a barrier to entry anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think it'll pretty much be, again, having a membership, knowing, at least having been to an event with the current system, knowing what your category is, what division you compete in, those kinds of things. So for the people who are accustomed to competing and have competed over the past couple of years, there shouldn't be much of an issue there. It's pretty much just, if you have any questions, you can just contact us, or Travis at Iasca, or Steve with Mecca, or whomever, and, we'll figure it out together. Especially if you plan to compete this year and you haven't had an opportunity to because of this, but you can make it to finals and you know what you're doing and you're ready to do it, then we can have that conversation and figure out what works best in that scenario. But
has there been any talk of a inaugural 2021 season event like they have traditionally done at finals, for anybody who just wants to come?
Yes, haven't really got that far, just because of a matter of making sure that we have judges covered for the primary event.
You got Erin, Pink Noise. Drive by. Right?
Bang on the hood, done.
You get a prize. You get a prize.
Everybody here today.
Erin slaps hood. That's it.
That's
it's the one.
Those will probably be more last minute details than right now. We're down on potential judges anyway, because some judges just can't travel right now. Won't travel, don't want to travel, trying to keep the judging pool, obviously.
Can't say I blame them.
As high. Right. Yeah. Well, you're never there anyway.
That's
so
absolutely true. There's good reason for that.
But no, I think being in Texas, there's on the Iasca side,
everything's bigger.
Well, yeah. But on the Iasca side, especially, there's a plethora of judges, so we should be good there.
Would you say it's a plethora of judges?
Many.
Would you say it's a plethora? That's a movie reference. All right.
Oh, sorry. Goodness. Went right over my head.
Mine too.
What movie is that?
Princess Bride or something?
It's Three Amigos.
Princess Bride.
Three Amigos. Oh my God! It's the Three Amigos. Would you call it a plethora?
Oh, Robin Hood Men Tights. Yeah.
Yes, that went into your ears.
judging pool wise, it sounds like we'll be solid for both, like the money round and for Ayahuasca, and I know Steve's got a solid plan for Mecca. Hopefully, we'll see some cars from California there since we're finally in the middle of the country. I know California is kind of in a weird spot right now, but hopefully over the next couple months, things will maybe stabilize a little bit. Texas seems to be definitely on the back end of things. They hit a hot spot there for a while, but kind of like New York, how New York was falling apart, and now it's kind of everything's somewhat stable. I think we'll see similar in Texas, so I think we're safe there as far as that goes. And it's a very secure facility as far as where we're going to be. So there's a lot of safeguards already in place there. But I'm excited. I think there's a lot of great potential here, even going forward into future years as things kind of kick back. And I think where the COVID thing is kind of exposed other things that are physical get-togethers that don't necessarily have to be physical, like office buildings and training events and whatever else. I think on the flip side, competition is something that we definitely has been seen as crucial to be a physical get together, and people are definitely looking forward to happening again. So I think we'll play it cautious on this one and see how far we can go with it, and then see it might change how we do things going forward for the good. Who knows? But there won't be any SPL finals this year, so there's that. I guess it's sound quality only finals.
A lot of people will be happy about that.
I'm tempted to make some remark, but I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm not going to. Yes, I'm just going to let go.
Yeah,
the people doing Bobos might not be too happy, but I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's not a lot of crossover there, so there's. I mean, how many times How many times have we walked over to the SPL side or the vice versa,
Yeah. It's actually usually not a problem until you get the one or two knuckleheads that park, 100 feet away and then just demo their systems full tilt with the doors open.
Right. But also there's just that constant drone in the background. I mean, you hear it constantly.
That's tinnitus, man.
That's tinnitus.
That's tinnitus. All these years of doing car audio was paying off.
It caught up.
Yeah.
Man. Yep. I didn't know it was me all this time.
Man, how many scores have you tanked because of that?
I just keep hearing this 140 dB drone in the background. I don't know what it is. All drones all the time.
Yeah, that's right. You got to contact the FAA for that.
Needless to say, I guess we won't be having any events in England or other territories this year since they won't let any of us in or out of the country. But
oh, they're still not doing that?
I'm surprised y'all are having. I mean, I'm thankful y'all are having the event this weekend in Murderland. Is that what you called it?
Murderland. I didn't call it that. Cubbyland.
Cubbyland. Yes. Well, anyway,
Cubbyland is the name of the event.
You said it was Crystal Lake, and is that not like the Jason movie stuff?
Tom.
You see, you're making all these movie references. I'm lost.
We got to call Tom. Happy birthday, Tom.
Like the Friday the 13th stuff, or what was that? It's like Echo
Aaron,
Lake
if you
Crystal
go, you'll find out.
I think I'll just Google it.
We're a bunch of masks in Chicago at a lake.
I know.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right.
A bunch of masks and a Jason mask, since I believe that's a movie place. But anyway, I could be wrong.
somebody will correct us at some point.
Yeah, somebody will tell me.
This weekend I'm going to be kicking myself because I really do want to be there. But
well, do you mind if you just wait until next time I see you and I can kick you? So you don't have to kick yourself.
If you could just hold on,
I'll cough on you.
I'll take care of that for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
As everything kind of gets processed and released and official, obviously, follow the Facebook page and group if you're in the SQologist group or whatever, and we'll keep information flowing. I don't have much more information than that at this point because we just don't. There should be pretty good stream of info coming over the next month. So make your plans. Was it October?
My anniversary.
October. Well, I did that on purpose.
Uh-huh.
October. So basically, we're going to start judging October 16.
Mm-hmm. My anniversary.
So it'll be October 16, 17, and then the money round October 18 is what we're potentially looking at now. Indals, hold off on doing hotel rooms or anything yet because we're probably going to have a set up for that.
We sleep in our car.
I mean,
In the parking lot.
That's what it's been like the last 4 finals I've been to.
With the 20 by 20 tent.
No, we sleep out in the parking lot in Tom's trailer. It's great. Happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday, Tom.
sleeping in Tom's bed in the parking lot.
No, last year wasn't it? It was
Those aren't pillows.
It was this trailer last year. We literally
the actual like car trailer.
Yeah, the car trailer.
Hold on. Last year, you're telling me y'all were trailer trash?
Yeah,
Not
wasn't the
just
first
last
year. Yes, that was not the first year.
Awesome.
and it hasn't stopped at all.
Oh man, y'all keep coming back for more. It must be really nice.
Nothing like sleeping in a car trailer in a parking lot in Kentucky.
Yeah, I bet.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
That's when you know car audio is life.
Yeah, that's right. You need a shirt that says that.
That's when you know.
Yeah.
When you sleep in Tom's trailer, that's when you know car audio is life. Anyway, that's all I got.
Cool.
Good question. I'm sure you don't know the answer, but you did mention y'all moved out with the SVR to next year. So does it look like next year? Do y'all expect hopefully the things to maybe get back on track? I mean,
Crystal
I'm
ball.
guessing
Here we go. What do
y'all
you
have
to
no
say?
idea.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you guys are planning other events that far in advance already, other than that major one.
I mean, typically,
because that one, to me, I was surprised that y'all went ahead and planned that one. It was really what I'm getting to.
Typically, we are planning a year out, so it's not really all that uncommon. But again, the issue there wasn't us hosting the event. The issue was the venue.
Okay,
and
so that's why
the venue was. They were reasonably sure that they were okay with that scheduling that weekend next year.
Yeah, I should have framed my question that way because that's really what I was wondering. Is that the reason why y'all planned that one out in advance? So
we planned it that far out last year too. We just announced it. We announced it, a little bit closer.
Yeah. Okay.
But the main goal there was to make sure that we had the weekend locked in at the venue level, so that way we could plan everything around that. And it's just easier to where, at least in this case, as soon as we knew that was the weekend we were shooting for, at least that way everybody else can kind of plan their vacation time or whatever else around that as much as possible. I feel like by the time we get to that point, things will be what they are regardless, and we'll be working around it. However, it's not, I'm not too concerned about it in what we're doing, because 50, 60 people is not something that is going to be overly regulated when it comes to this kind of thing.
Well, if it's still going on by then, I imagine for better or worse, it'll be a little bit more lax.
Right.
As far as
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're not talking, this isn't SEMA, this isn't CES, this isn't, we're not talking tens of thousands of people.
Down.
Right.
Yeah. That's crazy too. I mean, I'm not surprised, but
right. When you got, we're not pulling from, 30 different countries with tens of thousands of people. So it's not like it's even some of the other hi-fi shows like your, Rocky Mountain or, whatever else, those are still much larger events than this is.
It's a good time to be small.
Under 100 people. Yeah, exactly. So we can pretty much get it done no matter what. It's just in the case of like finals, that's why we kind of chose Dallas, because we have 2 or 3 backup solutions if the primary solution doesn't work out. Obviously, we hope it does, because we have the most potential for growth based off of that. But worst comes to worst, we have plan B, C, D to be able to, at least if people are in Dallas with their cars, we know where to go with them.
Mm-hmm.
We can find somewhere to go and get it handled. The issue that we had in West Virginia was just the fact that is the venue. There's nowhere else to go. There's no backup solution there. So we just had to move it off.
Yeah, makes sense. So that begs the question then, are you going to have another SVR in July just so you can get things back on track? I'm kidding. You should have 2.
You got
me. You have one in July again, and then you start every July. Otherwise, you got to do every March, and you're throwing off your schedule.
Nope. There. I mean, SVR went like 10 years without happening, so I think 1 year will be we'll be fine.
No, man, you got to give the people what they're expecting, and they're expecting July or August, depending on which year you're referencing.
Just perfection. That's all we want is perfection.
No, I mean, and a first place trophy. So.
Right. Yeah, guaranteed first place, perfection. Nothing more that anybody asks. Just that.
Those are the only shows I go to.
Your face is an only show I go to. I don't know what that means, but I think that's a compliment, actually.
Your face, your mom's face.
Oh, hey man, that ain't funny, man. My mom only has one leg; she can't ride a bike. Wait, no, that's the wrong joke.
You can ride a bike with only one leg.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I've seen it too, actually.
Ben himself, I don't think has actually been to any of the 3 major events, Aggieland or Georgia or SVR.
You're right.
Car's been to SVR.
You're right, and I had a hotel booked and everything for Aggieland in April when it was going to be, and then March, April.
Well, remember back then?
Yeah. And then everybody's like, "Hey, we can't do it."
Yeah,
I know.
Just arbitrarily.
Yeah.
Just decided.
This was going to be the year that I went to a couple of major shows. Now I'm just going to pretend.
Now he comes up with the excuses.
Yep.
Oh, see, I was going to go to every show this year, and then you just messed it all up.
When his tombstone is going to say, "I was going to go to that show, but I didn't have enough time."
But Clifton changed the dates just to mess with me.
Yeah. You're not staying at Tom's trailer. I know that.
That's the best. See, that's way to fly.
Wasn't there a song about Uncle Tom's trailer? Was it about Warrant?
All these references.
Uncle Tom's cabin
In Crystal Lake.
Crystal
Murderland.
Lake. I'm telling you, Crystal Lake is the Jason Voorhees movie. I'm Googling that when this is over.
If it's not, it is now.
If it's not, you're never going to hear from me again. Ben is secretly hoping that it won't be.
I'm Googling it now.
He's like, it's not going to be. It's not going to be. Never want to hear from him again.
Snopes.
Camp Crystal Lake. You are right. Camp Crystal Lake. Friday the 13th.
I don't want to brag, but told you so.
Is it Crystal Lake, Illinois?
I mean, I don't think they get that specific on what. Do they ever say what state something is in?
Springfield, Illinois. The Simpsons, of course. Yes.
Did they say it was still?
Oh yeah.
I thought it was just Springfield. I didn't think it was.
It's totally Springfield, Illinois.
And we are so off track.
He wants it to be.
I'm Googling that one.
What happened? What happened? So finals is going to be in October, so that's cool.
Yeah, there we go. Who knew so much information that's completely useless would come up in this conversation?
While you're at it, Google Three Amigos and Plethora, because I'm pretty sure that's from the Three Amigos. Have you guys not seen the Three Amigos? Steve Martin.
Oh my god, movie
Chevy
references.
Chase.
I mean, maybe when I was like 7.
Gosh, but that movie is great. I watched it recently, like with my daughter, and she cracked up. I had to skip some parts, but she thought it was funny.
A plethora of pinatas.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
Sweet.
What is a plethora?
Would you call it a plethora? Anyway.
Yeah. Good.
You looking up the quotes from the movie.
I think
good
I
show.
think this podcast.
I hope everybody's
was over
already hung
8
up.
minutes ago.
Yeah, I think so.
Is this show?
I think that was over before it started.
Welcome to the Eschaeology Podcast.
Oh God, no.
You're right over there. Ben just flicked his finger into his cup, and I think
that was
he
a
hurt
lot
himself.
harder than it was.
There's no workers' comp here, so
Nope.
you'll have to
Not
take
during
that
COVID.
up with your employer. All right, guys.
Well, I'm
We'll
getting back to my
talk soon.
COVID life.
All right. Love y'all. Peace.